everyone know about the Haitian Revolution? Or like, does anyone need like a back history about it, like a short one or something? Or are you guys
Please, I'd like a short background.
okay? Well, I can say something, but if anyone else wants to, feel free. Haitian Revolution happened, yeah, it was between like what 17 and 1800s. Haiti was a colony of the French, and it was basically a place where I think the Spanish first owned Haiti, and they killed a lot of the indigenous people, imported a lot of slaves from Africa, and they worked in the sugar plantations. And it was like pretty strenuous labor to the point where like the lifespan it was like 30 or something really ridiculously young. And but there was also like a really large population of slaves in Haiti, as well as like small white planters and other, and I think mulattoes is what they call them. So yeah, the Haitian Revolution was started by Toussaint Louverture and de Salinas. I forgot how to say his name. I don't know French. Yeah, Louverture. Ben, do you want to say something? I feel like Ben, you would know better.
You said it's exactly right to sound overture. First and oldest, the first and only slave uprising that was actually a revolution. The only country that the slaves did a civil overthrow of the government and took over the government and actually took over the whole island. And for those of you that aren't aware, it's the same island as the Dominican Republic. And so there was another war between the people from Dominican Republic. Anyway, that's another story. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Ash and Ben. If no one else has anything else to share, I'm going to get started. The Haitian Declaration of Independence, 1804. The Commander-in-Chief to the people of Haiti, citizens, it is not enough to have expelled the barbarians who have bloodied our land for 2 centuries. It is not enough to have restrained those ever evolving factions that one after another mocked the specter of liberty that France dangled before you. We must, with one last act of national authority, forever assure the empire liberty in the country of our birth. We must take any hope of re-enslaving us away from the inhumane government that for so long kept us in the most humiliating torpor. In the end, we must live independent or die. Independent or death, may these sacred words bind us and be the signal for battle and our reunion. Citizens, my countrymen, on this solemn day, I have brought together those courageous soldiers who, as liberty lay dying, spilled their blood to save it. These generals who have guided your efforts against tyranny have not yet done enough for your happiness. The French name still haunts our land.
Everything revives the memories of the cruelties by this barbarous people. Our laws, our habits, our towns, everything still carries the stamp of the French. Indeed, there are still French in our island, and you believe yourself free and independent of that republic, which it is true, has fought all the nations, but which has never defeated those who wanted to be free. What victim what victims of our own credulity and indulgence for 14 years, defeated not by French armies, but by the pathetic eloquence of their agents' proclamations. When will we tire of breathing the air they breathe? What do we have in common with this nation of executioners? The difference between its cruelty and our patient moderation, its color and ours, the great seas that separate us, our avenging climate, all tell us plainly that they are not our brothers, that they will never be, and that if they find refuge among us, they will plot again to trouble and divide us. native citizens, men, women, girls, and children. Let your gaze extend on all parts of this island. Look there for your spouses, your husbands, your brothers, your sisters. Indeed, look there for your children, your suckling infants. What have they become? I shudder to say, the prey of these vultures.
Instead of these dear victims, your alarmed gaze will see only their assassins. These tigers, still dripping with their blood, whose terrible presence indicates your lack of feeling and your guilty slowness in avenging them. What are you waiting for before appeasing their spirits? Remember that you have wanted your remains to rest next to those of your fathers after you defeated tyranny. Will you descend into their tombs without having avenged them? No, their bones would reject yours. And you, precious men, intrepid generals who, without concern for your own pain, have revived liberty by shedding all your blood, know that you have done nothing if you do not give the nations a terrible but just example of the vengeance that must be wrought by a people proud to have recovered its liberty and jealous to maintain it. Let us frighten all those who would dare to take it from us again. Let us begin with the French. Let them tremble when they approach our coast. If not from the memory of those cruelties they perpetrated here, then from the terrible resolution that we will have made to put to death to anyone born French whose profane foot soils the land of liberty. We have dared to be free. Let us be thus by ourselves and for ourselves. Let us intimidate the grown child. His own weight breaks the boundary that has become an obstacle to him. What people fought for us, what people wanted to gather the fruits of our labor, and what dishonorable absurdity to conquer in order to be enslaved. Enslaved. Let us free the subscription for the French. They have conquered but are no longer free.
Yeah.
Let us walk down another path. Let us imitate those people who, extending their concern into the future and dreading to leave an example of cowardice for posterity, preferred to be exterminated rather than lose their place as one of the world's free peoples. Let us ensure, however, that a missionary spirit does not destroy our work. Let us allow our neighbors to breathe in peace. May they live quietly under the laws that they have made for themselves. And let us not, as revolutionary firebrands, declare ourselves the lawgivers of the Caribbean, nor let our glory consist in troubling the peace of the neighboring islands. Unlike that which we inhabit, theirs has not been drenched in the innocent blood of its inhabitants. They have no vengeance to claim for the authority that protects them. Fortunate to have never known the ideals that have destroyed us, they can only have good wishes for our prosperity. Peace to our neighbors, but let this be our cry. Anathema to the French name, eternal hatred of France. Natives of Haiti. Sorry, I don't know if I read too much. Natives of Haiti, my happy fate was to be one day the sentinel who would watch over the idol to which you sacrifice. I have watched, sometimes fighting alone, and if I have been so fortunate as to return to your hands the sacred trust you confide to me, know that it is now your task to preserve it. In fighting for your liberty, I was working for my own happiness, before consolidating it with laws that will guarantee your free individuality. Your leaders, whom I have assembled here, and I owe you the final proof of our devotion.
Generals and you, leaders, collected here close to me for the good of our land, and the day has come, the day which must make our glory, our independence eternal. If there could exist among us a lukewarm heart, let him distance himself and shudder to take the oath which must unite us. Let us vow to ourselves, to prosperity, to posterity, to the entire universe, to forever renounce France and to die rather than live under its domination, to fight until our last breath for the independence of our country. And you, people so long without good fortune. Actually, could someone else read that one, please?
And you, a people so long without good fortune, witness the oath we take. Remember that I counted on you constancy. Oh, remember I counted on your constancy and courage when I threw myself into the career of liberty to fight the despotism and tyranny you had struggled against for 14 years. Remember that I sacrificed everything to rally to your defense, family, children, fortune, and now I am rich only with your liberty. My name has become a horror to all those who want slavery, despots, and tyrants. Curse the day that I was born. If ever you refused or grumbled while receiving those laws that the spirit guarding your fate dictates to me for your own good, you would deserve the fate of an ungrateful people. But I reject that awful idea. You will sustain the liberty that you cherish and support the leader who commands you. Therefore, vow before me to live free and independent and to prefer death to anything that will try to place you back in chains. Swear finally to pursue forever the traitors and enemies of your independence. Dawn at the headquarters of Generalese, the first day of 1804, the first year of independence. Signed, J.J. DeSantis, the deed of independence. Oh, go ahead. Somebody else want to read? I can continue. Okay, the deed of independence. Native Army. Today, January 1st, 1804, the General-in-Chief of the Native Army, accompanied by the generals of the Army, assembled in order to take measures that we will ensure the good of all of the country. After having told the assembled generals his true intentions to assure forever a stable government for the natives of Haiti, the object of his greatest concern, which he has accomplished in a speech which declares to foreign powers the decision to make the country independent and to enjoy a liberty consecrated by the blood of the people of this land, and after having gathered their responses, has asked that each of the assembled generals take a vow to forever renounce France, to die rather than live under its domination, and to fight for independence until their last breath. Okay, I'm tired.
The generals, deeply moved by sacred principles after voting their unanimous attachment to the declared project of independence, have all sworn to posterity, to the universe, to forever renounce France and to die rather than live under its domination. A translation of the Haitian Declaration of Independence by Lauren. Okay, yeah, I don't need to read this part. Okay, I think it just repeats over, so it may be done. Yeah, it just keeps repeating over. So yeah. Thank you everyone for reading. Hoping to read
Good
this.
stuff. Good stuff.
That's fantastic. Very powerful.
That was very powerful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that they mention how they despise France so many times. Yeah, it really rang something in my ear, like in terms of France right now still taking taxes from Haiti and lots of West African countries that they colonize. They're still bullying, you know?
Yeah. And let's decode French equaling white, because that's what That's what French is. It's white.
Definitely agree.
So yeah, this is a great this is a great example of why this is not ever taught in school. I don't know why. Of course, you can't have Black children reading this ever, because they would get a surge of energy, a surge of power, knowing that their people, fought, but we all know the conditioning. Well,
They
the
could
book club
never.
members all know the conditioning done in the education system, so we don't have to talk about that. Um, but yeah, anyone else want to share anything?
I was gonna say that I've never ever seen or heard or read anything remotely resembles, Black people
Facts.
so outspoken against, white supremacy.
That part.
I don't think, and I know that's not by coincidence. This stuff exists, right? This is common. Not you can find this on the internet. You can put this in a history book today if you wanted, but I don't think it's a coincidence that we've never been shown anything like this.
I also think it's very interesting to really see that Haiti was really labeling or being very clear about what had happened to them and who did it. You don't see that a lot with like other independent African nations now. A lot of them just kind of like, oh, we got to take care of ourselves. But they literally went out and basically said, France did this to us and it's never going to happen again.
They're never allowed here. Anybody of French descent French blood is never allowed on this island again.
Yes, that's a very codified response. Who are to blame? The white supremacists. Who are to blame the most? Definitely the white supremacists, the people who maintain and refine the system. And the Haitian people, they were very much aware, and they wanted nothing to do with this slave system. No matter how many trinkets are, no matter what was thrown at them, they were not going to accept this slave system. So this is why this is not taught in schools, because in schools we're taught to accept the slave system, because we live in a slave system.
Kids are gonna start asking questions, and their response to all those questions is just gonna be white supremacy. They can't say that in school.
I wonder if Haitian children are being like shown this declaration.
I'm also very curious to see if Haiti is very religious, like very Christian or not, because I feel like a lot of these other nations, they would typically say, God did this to us, and that's just God's wrath. That's why we suffered, instead of very much saying that we were colonized and raped and beat. But I guess that's a different.
Wow.
That's actually really interesting because my brother's like my brother and his friends are very Christian, and I always notice that missionaries love to go to Haiti, and it makes a lot of sense actually now when like reading this.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I asked if the Haitian kids were being taught. I wonder if they were being taught this because, in the declaration, he's the general or whoever wrote it was very. I don't want to say whoever wrote it. I should know who wrote it, but the person that wrote it was very clear to the people, like, don't ever, side with them or work with them. Don't ever trust them, because all the people who died here, all your ancestors will reject you. It's very important that you don't ever trust these people ever again. Don't. And I thought that was I hope that maybe that's why we see Haiti in the. I mean, that's probably why we see Haiti in the condition it is, because of that.
Yeah. It's like being quarantined. It's like, been isolated in quarantine. They couldn't let liberation spread. I've only seen negative things about Haiti. I've only known of negative things that happen to Haiti until doing actual research about the revolution and diving into it.
I totally agree. I feel like it is this is for now. This is now giving me clarification as to why I feel like Haiti is under constant attack. Growing up, I've never heard anything good about Haiti, just like you said, in terms of human trafficking, in terms of so-called natural disasters and hurricanes, going there constantly. Like, I'm someone who believes in geo machines, so like I feel like directing it towards Haiti is probably a thing because it was just too constant, in my opinion. What else? Yeah, it makes sense. The fact that Haiti is part of the African Union, or have been trying their best to get into the African Union, they're forward thinking, they're already showing their alliance, if that makes sense. And that's even kept under wraps. Like, there's not a lot of information about that. Well, there probably is, but it's just not known information.
Mm.
I was trying to think of the other natural resource that they have besides sugar. There's something else there that they have been robbed of and ripped off of. And
Stuff in the motor pencil. Oh.
Ben, I have a question for you. Because you seem like you were talking about the DR. There's a part in here where it says it says, let us ensure, however, that a missionary spirit does not destroy our work. Let us allow our neighbors to breathe in peace. May they live quietly under the laws that they have made for themselves. And let us not, as revolutionary firebrands, declare ourselves the lawgivers of the Caribbean, nor let our glory consist in troubling the peace of the neighboring islands. Unlike that which we inhabit, theirs has not been drenched in the innocent blood of its inhabitants. They have no vengeance to claim from the authority that protects them. Do you know what islands are specifically talking about? I'm guessing at this time, certain places still weren't colonized.
who's blasting music in the background?
My housemate.
Oh.
It's very annoying. Sorry.
Okay. I'm gonna say I'm not 100% sure, but in later years, the neo-colonialist element returned and took power in Haiti. And I know that to be true during the reign of Papa Doc and Baby Doc. Papa Doc and Baby Doc were horrendous dictators that were puppets of the French. That very similar to what has happened, the neo-colonialism that has occurred in Africa. Same thing happened in Haiti. And during, I don't know the exact time frame, that when Haiti had all of this power, after having ejected the French, at some point they didn't adhere to that part of the Constitution that you just read. At some point, they went to dominate the Spanish side. So the Haitian side is the Black French side. Obviously, DR is the Spanish speak. They don't even consider themselves, even to this day, Afro-Caribbean. They identify with Spanish. And they look more like me. You know how the DR people look, half Black and half Spanish, Black Spanish. And those Haitians basically not colonized, but they took control of the whole island. And apparently there was right to this day, there's hatred between DR people and Haitian people, which is ridiculous. But it's because the Haitians dominated that island and apparently were not fair. I don't know. I got to read more about it, but they were hard on the DR, on the Spanish speaking people. They beat them down, and then there was a massive uprising. DR rose up, and there was a war, and there was a massacre, and that's when they separated, and one became Dominican Republic and one became Haiti. I'm not exactly sure of the details, and the timeline. But neocolonialism, and it's still there. It's still there in Haiti. The United States has been very active. They actually kidnapped John Beatron during the Clinton administration. They kidnapped him and took him to South Africa, the president of Haiti, who was duly elected. And because he wasn't acquiescing to the United States corporations, they helped depose him. You know, that's what the U.S. does. They go around toppling governments, bullying people to do what they want them to do. And I'm so glad you pulled this up, because these people are, this is the model that they want to suppress. This French Revolution is the model for liberation for all Black people, and they want it suppressed.
Revolution.
Yeah. Would you say, Swap?
I said Haitian Revolution.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. So I wanted to give you guys thoughts on this and share some thoughts about this part. I'll read it again. So the commander-in-chief is saying, when will we tire of breathing the air they breathe? What do we have in common with this nation of executioners? The difference between its cruelty and our patient moderation, its color and ours, the greatest seas that separate us, our avenging climate, all tell us plainly that they are not our brothers, that they will never be, and that if they find refuge among us, they will plot again to trouble and divide us. And no one can like logically argue that this has not happened 2020. Divide and conquer. Black people hate Black people. Every so-called like race, the Mexicans hate Black people. Well, no, I should just say anti-Blackness is global, just to not have to label all these racial classifications the white supremacists have created. So divide and conquer model still afloat. And, Toussaint, like they were aware like what they were dealing with, and they solved the problem temporarily. But that's why it takes every single person on the planet to be codified. And like, I don't think every single person in Haiti was codified. That's why Haiti is now being dominated. But yeah, you want to have any thoughts about what I just read?
I think we really, as Black people, that they're the example. The Haitian Revolution is the example. This declaration, what is it called? Their declaration? What is it called?
The Haitian Declaration of Independence.
Right. That's our motto. That's our go-to, and to just constantly remind ourselves and to remind the people when we see them, that anytime you see an act of racism, this is just surface behaviors. This is just one aspect, is to check them, constantly checking them, constantly reminding them that the reason that you have privilege, the reason that you have every material thing that you have, is because of the death, destruction, the rape, the murder, and the theft of the indigenous peoples of this world. I'm just constantly reminding them, and keep and the self-love piece, comes from the fact that we have to, that we're hated because of our melanin. And so how we reverse that, how we take that and explain to our young kids, our young children, that melanin that you have is the most valuable commodity on the planet. You are hated because you have it, and it can't be attained by those that don't have it, and you're rich. I think the problem in our communities is that we're upset because of our our socioeconomic status. And so to change the way we feel about our SES, we start smoking weed, not just weed. Let me not just throw weed in there, but the drugs, the alcohol, the behaviors that cause us to forget and to not feel those feelings. And those are the very behaviors that keep us stuck right where we're at. And it all goes back to low self-esteem, self-worth, self-hate, the ability to even look at your brother and say something harmful for us to harm each other. Gotta.
Yeah. Well, that I hope everyone can understand that we are trained from the womb to hate black, seek black out, to destroy black if possible. Those are the messages we get 24/7. So
Yeah, I wanted to
and also
answer the question.
yes, yeah, go Trey.
Yeah, so what you have read made me think of how I naturally rationalize things. It's like what has to be done to black people for us to like finally unify and realize that there's an entire system of anti-blackness. I like what you said about not really wasting time, saying, oh, it's white supremacy and non-white versus white and all these things. I come to the conclusion quite recently that it's non-black versus black, so it's everybody versus black people. Black people have no allies. Black people have no friends. Even
Chancellor Williams.
even
Yeah.
what's it?
No, I was just not think
Chancellor.
Even black people are enemies of other black people. So that shows me like the severity of what's what I just said. How we're taught to hate and seek out black to destroy it since birth. We're so indoctrinated to the system of white supremacy, aka anti-blackness, anti-black behavior, anti-black programming. That reading the Haitian Revolution, it seems like this person was aware of the global system of racism, white supremacy, and they were aware of knowing that white people are not our brothers and sisters, are not our imaginary allies, are not our saviors. So it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I think the part that you read just rehashes and iterates that black people need to really, really get serious about understanding what's happening, as Slave 0526 had mentioned.
Thanks. Well said. Well said. You don't have any else to
I
say?
want to ask questions, people. I want to propose the questions to the group.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we are reading this, what kind of ancient DNA or ancient energy was? How was it reacting to this knowledge? Like, what were you feeling about reading this? Were you able to like psychically go back in time and feel the surge of fire, or were you just reading it like it was an essay from your college textbook? Have you been emasculated to the point where you no longer feel ancient DNA from text? Personally, when I was reading this, I felt like I was in Haiti. I felt like I was, being action. I feel like I was being told to rebel against the enemy. I felt like I was being told to survive and liberate at all costs and die in the process if necessary. But yeah, it was really it was very invigorating to read such a powerful document.
Yeah, I would say it was very it's healing to be exposed to this sort of information, and to read it is very yeah, I want to say I could say immersive for a lot of people who are able to maybe comprehend what you're getting at. but very like immersive, and like I definitely felt like I was there, and definitely like just like I was reading the ISIS papers or the code book, I feel like, wow, power, knowledge is power, and I've already had read this, but even reading that part that I read, no matter when I read it, it's just like images of like black people being like terrorized by every single color you can imagine just flashed to my head. I'm like, yep, no friends, Chancellor Williams, and the system of anti-blackness, system of racism is just a very powerful force still in 2020. And no one seems, not enough people are nearly serious about this problem. Not enough people are serious about this problem, especially black people. Um, and this is like about 200 years ago when this happened. Probably, my math is probably off, but still a very long time ago. And just a good example of the state of just the black psyche, the black collective, the captives, the black captives, the black people who have been classified as black, formerly known as Africans. You don't have anything else to share, or should we get the closing comments?
Trey asked a question, so I think I want to answer it.
I want to answer Trey's question. You know, I would, as I was listening to, I remember Black Fear and from the ISIS papers, and how I had to admit, I'm fearful of actually doing something about white supremacy killing me, right? But reading this and knowing that I'm embarrassed and ashamed that that I felt that way for so long. I feel that my ancestors, they were laying it down at all costs, and just like he said, he did the part. It's our responsibility to preserve it, right? So that's just how I felt about it. Call it that. I feel like maybe that was my ancestors, the spirits talking to me and making me feel that way. So that's how I felt.
Just right quick, if my reading is correct, I think Frederick Douglass had a lot of influence on Toussaint L'Ouverture. Frederick Douglass was the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Haiti, and when we were reading that, I morphed into Frederick Douglass. I was going. The limits of a tyrant are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Find out what a person will submit to, and you have found the exact amount that shall be heaped upon him. Right. So that's a quote from Frederick Douglass, right? And so I was like, in my mind, I was whereas Trey was a warrior, I was leading the revolution. I was like, and I went there. Yeah, I appreciate that question.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
No, I was going to say, I think that's a very powerful question, and and thank you so much for letting us read this today. I have never read it before in my life, and Dr. Yakub had said something in the chat about like they don't teach you this in schools, and this is exactly what I needed to be learning growing up. Like this, the energy that I felt reading this, or even just hearing us read it amongst ourselves. Like Ben is like the Frederick Douglass thing that you were saying, like the voice that you like had put in, the energy that was coming through, it made me feel like I had to also make sure I speak with high energy, and like that is, we need to generate more of that. Like that's 200 years ago. That's the most radical it's the most radical thing I think in a long time. It's, yeah, very powerful. And I don't know where I was with it in my melanin DNA, but it just told me that they sacrifice way more than we are willing to right now, and we need to get hella mentally on board. He mentioned he mentioned the babies, like what are they gonna come to if they have oppression over them, and it's like we've managed to live in a functional way. Yeah, I'm going on, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and to
thank you.
answer that question, where the babies are gonna come to, we've seen what the babies become. They grow up and either like love, seek about white validation their entire lives, or grow up hating themselves, join a gang, kill each other, or spend their time being unconstructive, twerking, dancing, clowning around, complaining, not being serious about solving this problem. So that's what happens to the oppressed group. They
All health bypasses. This is all the product of poor mental health. What can we do?
yeah.
I agree totally.
Is Reed?
I have another question. I wanted to.
I wanted to answer the question.
I wanted to answer the question as well.
Hey,
I'm in line.
Go for it.
Okay, yeah. I really felt a lot of energy from reading this, like really good energy, like very like how Ezekiel was saying. I also felt pretty like embarrassed, like how can I be like afraid or have Black fear when these people were literally like writing the most like what could be seen as so incendiary at that time, and like really just being very straightforward and not, and I mean ultimately I feel like that probably is why they're attacked so much more, because this declaration is very like we're not working with you. And then soon after that was like probably the embargo, and they were like losing ability to trade like the natural resource that made that country so rich. But like I still feel like I felt really good energy from it. Like I felt like I was there, and like I could really I feel like my chest was puffing up. Like I felt like, man, fuck these people. like you know what I mean? Like we're gonna build our own thing. And ultimately, like it didn't. But I also feel like kind of sad, because it's like ultimately like, white supremacy is like always 10 steps ahead whenever like, and it's really hard to like, I don't know if they could have foreseen like what was going to happen in terms of like how the different like white or European countries would just like coalesce together against Haiti, because what Haiti was doing was like using them against each other, and they were really smart about it. But I think ultimately like I think the fear of white people, of like Black people rising up is so strong that it sometimes feels like they overdo what they even need to do to keep us in place. Like they just have to have us suffer like more, if that makes sense. And I think that too, like the Haitian Revolution is so much more important than they say in history. Like it was really, there was so much fear in America because of the Haitian Revolution. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ash. Well said. Well said. Just to continue, after reading this, or even during reading this, I felt motivated. I really felt the need to like, let me go scream up my rooftop, let me go do something right now. Like, let's go march down the street. Like, it's time, revolution is happening. But no, jokes aside, but I really felt motivated. I think I even pulled up my research on the side to like think about it. I started to feel like motivated, not only reading this, but also like in my personal life. Like, this is only the beginning of what is to come. This is the beginning feeling of what is to come tomorrow or moving forward. So it's very interesting too, like how just this one piece of work can just like bring fire. And just imagine doing this every single day, like through my research, like continue doing this, how much fire will build on top of each other and what the actions will come out of it. And just thinking about providing this energy, or like even passing this energy to other people, like just think about the fire that's like the snowball effect. And if you continue to live this way and move forward and not be fearful, right now I'm practicing not giving an F, because I give my Fs too much. So I'm practicing not giving an F, and this is one of the areas too, is like, I want to be unapologetic. Like, I'm not sorry for nothing. Like, you know, I'm not sorry that you feel that way because you killed so many people and you don't care about us. So I'm not sorry that you're uncomfortable right now, but I'm going to say this, you know? So I think it's important not only for like my relationship, like with white people or just, but my relationship with non-white people, my relationship with everyday people. Like, how do I feel in certain situations? Like, if you're doing something unconstructive, I'm not participating, nor am I sorry to say that I'm not participating or I don't agree with that or blah, 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 you know? So yes, let's all move forward with this fire, be unapologetic, and we're not sorry. We're not sorry.
Hmm. Wow. Well said, Ray. Well said. Yeah. Like it's actually codified to not even apologize. You know, you can say I made an error. You know, I'm thinking about compensating for the error I made, but we don't have to apologize until like white supremacy is over. Apologize for what? Like, you know, we're all like, you know, we live in an insane society. You know, we're forced to live in an insane society where, you know, and so, yeah.
Did you want to say something, Yaku? Or were you about to?
Oh, I was thinking about like Haiti defeated Napoleon. And that was like towards the end of the revolution. Like Napoleon well, let me see. In January of 1802, an invasion force ordered by Napoleon landed in Saint Domingo. And after several months of furious fighting, Toussaint agreed to a ceasefire. Then in 1803, he was arrested and taken to a dungeon in the French Alps where he was tortured and died in April. And after Toussaint's arrest, Napoleon ordered his intention to reintroduce slavery to Haiti. And Dessalines led a new revolt against French rule with the aid of the British, and rebels scored a major victory against the French force there. And on November 9th, 1803, colonial authorities surrender. So, like, it was like there was a second leg of this war. Like they won once, and then Napoleon tried to take another swing at it, and they beat them. So I can understand like the anti-French sentiment because this is after they captured and killed Toussaint.
Anyone else have anything else to share? Can we, or should we get their closing comments? Or anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Or there was a part that I didn't understand, and I wanted to know if you guys understood. So it says, "We have dared to be free. Let us be thus by ourselves and for ourselves. Let us imitate the grown child. His own weight breaks the boundary that has become an obstacle to him. What people fought for us? What people wanted to gather the fruits of our labor? And what dishonorable absurdity to conquer in order to be enslaved? Enslaved. Let us leave the description for the French. They have conquered but are no longer free." Like, what do you think that last line means? Let us leave the description for the French. They have conquered but are no longer free.
They're slaves to evil. They're slaves to destruction. They're slaves to malicious intent and behavior, to vileness and deprivation of the soul. That's what the French so-called white people are. I think that's what that means. I'm pretty sure. Could be wrong. You else want to answer the question?
Well, I think it's impossible for
I
white.
get
I think it's impossible for white people to be free because of that right there. Because of to be free and to be happy. I think freedom, happiness is determined by the degree of freedom that you feel inside. And having been, having the blood of so many indigenous peoples and the atrocities that have been committed so egregiously, that they can't be free. They're enslaved to guilt and shame.
Yeah, and they're still passing down black males and balls in jars in the South, even in the North, I'm sure, as family heirlooms. So yeah, I want nothing to do with people who are doing this sort of thing. So I need to be compensated, and being able to given the liberty to move away and go away very far to live in peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to answer the question, and I do think what's said and what's been said are both correct. It's a reflection of the white existence, and it made me think about how we may not never know until we transition to like a different plane, and we want to investigate the human archives of the ancient Black people. But there's probably ancient Black people who've never even seen them photographed or seen them documented because they were genocided by white people. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there used to be like this group of people in Africa that used to grow to be like so tall, and I consider how all of them were strategically genocided. I don't know the name of the people. Maybe someone in the group knows, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw a picture of like one of like the last remaining survivors of can you, I can't I don't know what the victim can't survive a genocide, a victim, yeah. But we've history has shows us that white people genocide and then glorify it and laugh about it, how like genocided the people on Tasmania Island, and Looney Tunes came around and made this character called the Tasmanian Devil, who goes around spinning and destroying everything in his path. Kind of similar to what the white people did in Tasmania, if you ask me. But that's just how we could decode things, understanding the system we live in.
Yeah, for me to answer that question, I would say it's exactly what everybody else has said, and that I agree. The statement for me is just like you stained yourself with the path of, okay, you're conquered, but they are no longer free. You stain yourself with the path of constantly having to retell your lie, like it's done constantly throughout history. You're constantly retelling the same lie and trying to keep purity in a dictionary, but your actions are not pure whatsoever, to the point that you can have an innocent cartoon that's there to kind of get it into the mindsets of the children. Because I grew up with that cartoon of Tasmanian Devil on Looney Tunes, and it having its own show with characters who moved over from England to Australia, and they've come to like maim the land, and it's like they're trying to catch the Tasmanian Devil, so therefore the problem being external from them, and they're there to save the day and colonize the space. And I'm there watching this show, and that's the mindset that I'm taking in. But in reality, I've grown up years later to find out it's not only the opposite, it's a murder, it's a massacre. And it's like, how can you keep up a lie to the point that you have to manipulate children? It's ridiculous. It's quite painful, and you sullied your soul in that sense to keep that lie up.
Yeah, they did it to themselves. I think that's a quote or somewhere.
How can we get a room check, a temperature check? How is everyone feeling?
I'm feeling good. I love talking about the truth, that which is, the reality that I see everyone, including my family, trying so hard to escape daily. So I love talking about the truth. So I'm having a blast. Well, I don't want to have it on blast because I'm not destroying anything. So I'm having a constructive time. I don't want to blast anything right now.
Yeah, we're not on the blasting stage yet. I'm feeling fantastic. I agree. I definitely like talking about constructive things and talking about reality and that we all share. We all live in a shared reality, and the common denominator is racism, white supremacy, and global anti-blackness, and the agenda of Black ultimate destruction. So, and also like I see it every single day. People running away from the mirror, the mirror of society, the mirror of their actual reality. Hey, people are dying and being hunted, and it's a giant war game being put onto display, and people are just so unwilling to like face it or call it by what it is. So this is very constructive, and then I definitely missed the group, rallying together. We've had like a hiatus.
Was that your roundabout way of just saying that you missed us, Trey? Oh, I missed having these conversations too. So I'm really glad that we like read this. I've always read this book. It's called The Black Jacobins. I've always tried to finish it and I can never finish that book. So if we could ever read it together, I would love that because it's about the Haitian Revolution, but it's just,
What's it called?
It's called The Black Jacobins. It's by C.L.R. James. It's pretty dense though, but it's really good. But I think it's really good to read in terms of understanding like strategy. If we really want to learn about like have a revolution, I feel like we really need to learn how certain revolutions happen. I just thought it was cool how they would always pit different white people against each other. And then at the end of the day, just got rid of all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, not for long though, unfortunately.
Yeah, like I don't even like the term revolution. I would never want to be called a revolutionist or revolutionary or any of that, any of those labels. I'm a solutionist. I want a solution to this problem, the race problem, the war going on against Black people. I want a solution. So I'm like, solutionary. Let's need to get some solutions to this problem.
I have a solution.
What's there?
Build your arsenal. I'm really serious about that. I'm dead serious about that. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to increase my ammunition stockpile. I'm serious as a heart attack. And I think we should watch Swashbucklers, starring James Earl Jones. It's about the Haitian Revolution. It's an old movie. If you can find it, Swashbucklers.
Find anything in white supremacy.
Yeah, I definitely agree that weaponry is so necessary.
Yeah.
And just body armor, because this is what the white supremacists are buying. This is what they're training their children with to do. This is what they've normalized.
Yeah.
There's children in America, in the North, in the South, in the Midwest, all over, who after they leave school, they go hunting with their dads and murder animals. So they're being trained to kill at a very early age.
Yeah, or they're shooting ARs in the backyard.
Not just that too. There's
Wisconsin, the kid they dropped off with the AR-15.
Yeah, look at that.
17-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, racist suspect. Well, I think that's he harmed someone and he's a white person, so he's a racist white supremacist.
Not just that too, but like there's I didn't even know that the CIA has their own army. Like they don't even use the US Army. So then there's like all these other countries that are invaded by the CIA. And I'm like this special force. And I'm just like, what? Like it's so deep. Like there's so many layers of just like, how do you like when I think about things like that, I get so depressed because I'm like, wait, who's gonna fight those people if we have like Swal was saying, a solution? Like Like
Yeah.
these people are constantly training to like and constantly know how to like, you know, I don't know. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, the way I
we got
see
all
that area of
funding.
the way I see that area of counter war, the white people have guns that have guns. So what black people need to do is if they want a gun, go for it. But the best bet is for every single black person, every person who wants to help solve the problem to become codified and counter racist. Use logic, science to counter the solution. Stop participating in this nonsense, this like insane society. But also, you know, get your gun because you're living in an insane society.
I mean, if you're gonna buy a gun, you might want to get some friends. Go to the range together.
Oh, of course, of course. Yeah, I think it's very constructive to be able to protect yourself and in a world where the system is designed to kill you, you know, protecting yourself should be of utmost important.
I think too, like in terms of, I think it's like incumbent on all of us to like build a skill that will actually be like of use. Like I'm trying to think like, I have a daughter. I was just talking to Swab about this, you know, I think she should be like a welder or a mechanic, something that is like actually like really beneficial and like knowledge that we actually need, you know, because like that type of stuff is like knowing things that a lot of people don't know but need is probably really, really important.
Yeah, like learning how to, you know, grow food and like heal soil. Yeah, that would be really important stuff soon. Yeah. This is why, you know, we can't stress like the importance of always learning, always learning. Yeah, Trey?
Yeah, I'm trying to the Bay Band so I could learn how to shoot with you. Well, you probably know how to shoot already, but I'm trying to learn how to shoot.
Oh, I can always use more practice, and we would want to invite or try to recruit some black special forces into this group.
Yeah, we need more members. Like we need people from our own background. Dr.Frances Cress Welsing. Yeah, Ben, I may actually take a trip up to the Bay. Can I stay at your spot and like shoot with you? Cause like, you know.
By all means, anytime.
I wanna go too.
I'm about to fly to the Bay just for this trip, just so I could fire a weapon and learn how
I
to
feel like
blow a
this
gun.
is like we should like actually plan this not on Zoom, but like.
Okay, so I'm definitely gonna have to start pouring out libations for Jacques Dessalines because I want this energy on planet Earth. I want him to like come like infect like the people around me. Just give him an idea to, hey, you know, maybe I should like, you know, go do something constructive, you know, because everything we do is either constructive or non-constructive. It's either that or, you know, cause and effect. So I really, really appreciated like reading this with everyone. It was I definitely learned a lot. And yeah, I just wish that the Haitian people could have been more codified and warded off this evil system. But I think that's also an example of how like not one country can liberate themselves from the system. Like it takes the entire globe. It takes the entire planet to counter the system, which is why people would say, oh, this is why it's impossible. But that kind of thinking actually has a word for that. It's called zero-ristic thinking, which is thinking that doesn't produce justice. So in the zero-ristic thinking is this, that is what people have been programmed to. You know, they don't think that we can live in a world without being dominated. They don't think we can live in a world with actual peace. And it could be, no, it is the fear, you know, post-traumatic slave syndrome is very real. You know, I'm sure the Haitian people are still, they're being terrorized still to this day. And the terror is in their genes, just like it's in our genes. So much focus needs to be placed on solving this problem by more people. But
I enjoyed reading the Haitian Declaration of Independence. I'm ready to start a second revolution in Haiti. We should like I'm always like thinking logistics. Like I'm like where would you start? Like would it be education?
Simultaneously all 9 areas of people activity. So that's
You're like going
education.
in and out. Oh, sorry.
Oh, so that's education, economics, entertainment, um, labor, law, politics, religion,
Oh,
sex,
I was
war.
saying would it be education? Would it be land reform?
Everything
Like
simultaneously.
you need an economic like strong like the reason that Haiti gets beat up so much is because one, the revolution was successful, and two, they don't have like an economic system to defend themselves.
I don't think the revolution was successful
Because you need to be able to buy guns and stuff, right?
well, means of production is more important than being able to buy guns.
Okay, but then you would have to source the raw materials from somewhere.
You're buying the guns from people who are ultimately not on your side, who will betray you and stop the cells once it becomes a threat to their existence.
Yeah, because it's not just guns. It's much more than just.
Yeah.
This is why it's a simultaneous effort. We can't just focus on one area. People activity, it has to be all of them. Well, I could be incorrect.
No, I'm just messing around at this point. Is everybody like what would it I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time, like people on the Champagne Sharks Discord. It's like for instance, those families that bought that land, like what are they going to do with it? You know, what would it take to start a community? How would you defend it after you've built it up? You know, all these questions that come into play. And you're right, you know, you do have to kind of do everything at once. You got to build it and defend it. And, you know, it's a colossal undertaking.
Yeah, but anything built can be taken down. The system is a artificial system, so it can be, you know, it could crumble like everything else has before it.
I think the foundation for any revolution is happening in Africa now. And someone mentioned earlier, food production. People must, you know, like the determination. I mean, the what am I trying to say? A nation's destinations, what I'm trying to think of, is determined by their ability to feed themselves. You know, sustainable farming, sustainable living. And Haiti really doesn't have a choice. It's not an option for them because of, you know, all of the systems that come through there. And the corporations, you know, during the buildup after the earthquake, you know, I forget what they're manufacturing, but not in Port-au-Prince. They built a major corporate manufacturing plant somewhere in the country, beautiful paved, you know, streets, a beautiful concrete complex, you know, brand spanking new. And the people there are kind of, you know, the handful of people that are able to work and make a living from this this manufacturing plant is only a handful, and everybody else is still living in tents and shacks. And so it's neocolonialism at you know, textbook neocolonialism. You know, continue to prioritize getting a few pennies rather than a collective effort for everyone to raise their standard of living, and fighting for a few crumbs. Throw a few crumbs for a few people to fight over, and everybody else just starve to death. the system has to be broken and changed from the bottom up. And I think Haiti is a good ground zero, look at how to do it with what we read, the Declaration of Independence, and applying it. You can have all the knowledge and information and intellect in the world. And that's what I appreciate about the intellect of this group. But if we don't apply it, it's all for naught.
Yep.
Buy some stocks, at your age, start looking at, start learning how to get you an E-Trade account, even if you only put a couple $100 in it.
That's right now.
Is that right?
Yeah, I've been doing it for a minute actually.
Yeah, starts. Yeah. And so like, when you get my age, you'll be set, and you'll be able to buy all the guns you need to protect your farm, to protect our farms. The Nation of Islam has a farm down in Georgia. Supposedly they have thousands of acres down there, and they got attacked by the Klan when they had like 300 or 400 acres. They got attacked and their farm got burned. And they recently asked Farrakhan, well, how are you going to avoid that happening again? And he said, let them try attacking us now. So they got the Fruit of Islam down there, and they're strapped and they're protecting their land. Those crackers ain't gonna, they're not gonna mess with they're not gonna mess with the Fruit of Islam now. And I, their philosophy and that whole thing, being in that cult is not my cup of tea, but I like what they're doing. They're the only ones that are saying, look, let's get together, buy land, farm, and have our own. And I think, what? Oh, okay. I was listening to Malcolm X about, and someone mentioned earlier about being members of the what is it called?
Nation of Islam?
No, the Organization of African Unity. We should all, Haiti was, someone mentioned that they were attempting to become a member of the Organization of African Unity. We should be members of the Organization of African Unity. Why are we not? That's what Malcolm X was attempting to do. In fact, he had already started the African American organ, aside from the Nation of Islam, he had all these Black Baptist churches and preachers. He had them all together saying, look, let's set our religious beliefs aside and come together as Black people and join the Organization of African Unity. And that's when they popped him.
Yeah, I think that's a good example to be against, being against any organization that is not directly saying that, hey, this is for countering racism. We're gonna learn about what it is, how it works, so we could counter this as most effectively. So I'm against joining organizations unless they're actually saying, hey, this is of constructive value, high constructive value, or gonna teach me how to counter this evil system I was born into. And God in a flesh bag.
One of the challenges of rebuilding Haiti, or specifically Port-au-Prince, is that it's an earthquake-prone area. The city has collapsed multiple times over its history. So, they would need skills that might have been deprived from the country. There's always brain drain in poor countries with people who are afforded an education, leaving for greener pastures, that kind of thing. And then the cost of the materials, besides the skills of like being able to design earthquake-proof structures, you have the cost of materials and the labor and all of that.
I think I just recently heard a report a few weeks back, maybe could have been a month or so ago, several weeks, about Haiti suing the French for $90 million, where actually the French claim that Haiti owes them 90 million. And so now with the uprising, now Haiti is saying, wait a minute, you know what? You owe us 90 million, which is really, it should be 90 billion.
90 trillion. What what is like the debt like to what is it, Black Americans from the United States? It's something like 10 to 15 trillion. Yeah,
I heard
Haiti is
20,
probably
I heard 20 trillion. I heard
20 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Haiti is probably like I don't know 10 trillion, 15 trillion from the French. Who knows how much they owe? Oh, Ashley left. She disappeared.
Yeah, well, what Black people need is justice, living in a system where no one is being mistreated and the people who need the most help receive the most help. Getting a lot of money would help a lot in the economics area of people activity, but white people who dominate the planet will always have more so-called money than people who are not white, than Black people especially. So my goal is justice, creating a world justice, getting as many people focused on that, producing justice, ending racism.
Researching the first Congress of the Independence of African States, which is the Organization of African Unity, the AU, and it was actually first established in 1958, and it was held in Ghana. So it's just like fun facts. Well, I'll share it as I was reading it. And it was later revived because I feel like it was shut down, obviously. It was later revived in the mid-1990s under the leadership of the Libyan head of state, Muammar al-Gaddafi. Yeah. I feel like it's worth it researching. There's a lot of stuff here. In terms of current act, they have a constructive act of the African Union. That's worth looking into.
And see, those French are in the Congo right now. The French are the ones that are behind the continued genocide. Is really, we were up in arms about the genocide in Rwanda, which is French, which was a French colony. And now it's going on right now as we speak. That same genocide that was happening in Rwanda is happening now in the Congo. It's under the radar. Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, Congo has literally all of the resources that these countries need to build weapons and to sustain themselves. So Congo is heavily terrorized, heavily being pillaged under white supremacist terrorization. Don't like to call it colonialism or neo-colonialism. I like to call it what I believe it to be, which is racism. So I think we should get into closing comments. We've been at this for a while. So you think, I don't know, unless you guys want to keep it going. Should we get into closing comments?
I think you hit on a good point about, Africa being a resource-rich continent. And they should probably be liberated first because those resources would be, necessary to any Black struggle in America. And having allies in Africa would make any struggle in America easier. If African countries were built up, had their own independent governments, and were, creating their own destiny.
Yeah, but unfortunately, as long as we have the system of racism, there's only one government worth naming, which has all the power, and that's the government of racism, white supremacy. Racist man, racist woman, collectively.
For my closing comment, just like taking off from the energy that we get from reading the Declaration of Independence, as well as Ray Jean's statement about not being sorry, being unapologetic about the things we we don't want to do, engaging in constructive behavior, and focusing on Pan-Africanism, understanding what that is, trying to like get some land back home, establish some land, become our own sovereigns, align, unite, create communities globally, in those countries if we can, create networks there where we can like pick a language, learn it amongst ourselves, use it in business, and be on code, because we are prisoners of war and we're trying to free ourselves of that oppression and be in control of our destinies while all the eyes are on us. Just try, we can do it.
For my closing comments, I want to go back to what I read and kind of like give my updated look at what Dessalini is getting at. Let me see. Okay, he says, what do we have in common with this nation of executioners? And through my discovery of this huge problem called racism, I discovered that white people, not only white people, are practicing racism, but along with that, they're eating Black people, raping Black children, to like every single day, 400 years. Sex farms, rape farms, rethinking. Rufus is a book which talks about Black people having like shit thrown in their mouths and their mouth sewn shut. That's where shit talking comes from, by the way. So that's what happened when like a slave was so-called like getting out of like line, talking so-called smart. So I have nothing in common with these people, and due to the system of racism, I am forced to seek them for anything of constructive value. But other than that, like I don't care to associate. And I think that's what one of the biggest things to take away from this is that racist man, racist woman will never be our friends, our brothers. Want to give a closing comments?
Agreed.
Yeah. For my closing comments, I would just like to basically give my takeaway from the declaration. Sorry. Just okay, sorry. Yeah, so basically my biggest takeaway is, comes back to self and group respect. I think, at that, with the general, the chief, I need to remember his name, but what he was saying was, we need to start exhibiting self and group respect. We do not do that by, going and accepting offers or working with our oppressors or the people who have terrorized us forever. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that. That's my closing comment.
Hi, it's Ash. My closing comments. I really liked reading this a lot. I would say that I really enjoyed the conversation in terms of thinking about like the logistics of really how we set ourselves free. Yeah, it was just a really interesting conversation. I think it's just a lot, like personally, like to think about. It's like the enemy at hand just seems very like very informative, but they're not. But it just seems like it sometimes. But I enjoyed reading this, and I really took a lot from it because I feel like this declaration is really like psychological in a way that a lot of them aren't, in terms of like really understanding the psyche of people who are oppressed, enslaved, and how, the idea of like how can you still let these people on your land, like what does that what does that mean about who you are and what this place is to you, and things like that. I think that's really important to like understand. And that was one of my biggest takeaways, is when a revolution happens, like you know, what is the psychology of, or like, what is the psychology of the people involved, like, to sustain it so that you don't feel like, because everyone still is like addicted to white people, unfortunately. And so it's like, how do you really free that psychological mental addiction? So yeah, I really liked reading this.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My closing comment. I enjoyed it as well. I thought it was very, very energetically positive, energetically liberatory. So like it made me just feel like invigorated in the possibilities of overcoming the threat that has been presented to us. That is white supremacy and global anti-blackness, global anti, you know, black behavior patterns within all people on planet Earth, even black people. So yeah, it was good to read something that is uplifting.
I think it's absolutely the model for our own revolution, the French Revolution. That's why it's so important to have been taught in Black studies, and it's so important for it to be squashed in the public school system. Um, and it also, that reading reminded me of the abject fear that white people have of Black people. So much so it causes them to get how many nuclear warheads? You know, it's because of that that they have to have and that they have to attack. And so it just, you know, I like to say it just feels good to be codified. If that's the correct use of that word, that's the new thing.
Codified.
Codified. Codified. Codified.
Yeah, well, now we've been coddled too much. That's a part of the problem, being coddled.
But yeah, you know, deconstructing and decoding this conditioning is chilling, really. You know, I'm having mixed emotions. I get angry, you know, and then, but the beauty is the solution brings peace to me, you know, being consciously aware and knowing that the fight is really um, our you know, people are saying that, well, we're at war. We're no, we're not at war. A war is when there's two sides fighting against each other.
Yeah.
It's a genocide.
Yeah, it's a war
Really.
against. It's a war waged against us. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so this group right here and others like this that are waking up is the beginning. And that's why I keep talking about arming ourselves, because you know, once we get out of this conditioning to an extent, to a degree, then the war will begin. When we start to retaliate is when there's a war, and not necessarily just physically with arms. You know, we've been attacked psychologically. So that's what
Yeah.
now is psychological war, retaliation.
Yeah. I'm very looking forward to reading and talking about counter war with everyone who's gonna be participating in a code book, because the last area, the most intense area, people activity, war, counter war. And yeah, it is going to be very serious work, just like all of this is serious work. So I know what I'm on this planet to do is help solve this problem, and wherever that takes me is where it takes me. Hopefully, I can live as long as Neely Fuller and Dr.Frances Cress Welsing and all the other people who are trying and have helped to solve this problem. But if not, oh well, you know, I don't fear death. I just fear white supremacy spreading towards other planets, and then they have aliens being dominated. You know, call it alien space nigger. You know, space monkeys. You know, I'm not. I don't want that. I don't want this to spread. I just need to end
I said the
ASAP.
same thing to Mary yesterday. I said the same thing to Mary yesterday. We call them space niggers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same
You know. Yeah. Ray.
Yes.
Would you like to?
My closing comments. The only thing I have really to say is just for myself too, is just to muster up the energy, muster up the strength, to detach from what society has given us and detach ourselves from the knowledge that we receive every single day outside of what we are seeking. So I think it's just important to be able to be able to know the difference between the knowledge that we want and that we're seeking and the truth than the knowledge that is giving us in society, and rejecting that knowledge and not claiming it as
Ray, it would help if you didn't call that knowledge and just called it information or misknowledge or something not knowledge.
Okay, information, misknowledge, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh no, nothing. I just thought I should say that.
But yeah, that's pretty much my closing thoughts.
I think misinformation is what is actually being called. But yeah, I totally well said, and I totally agree. Be able to understand that 24/7, if we're participating, especially in the entertainment area, people activity, we're getting told to mistreat Black people. All right, no more closing comments. I'm gonna adjourn.